Chapter 24, Battle Street. Jupiter sat for Feenstra, who reluctantly met them at the entrance to the Battle Street Wonderground station. She was to escort Morgan, Jack, and Hawthorne back to the Deucalion while Jupiter attended a mysterious business of the Safeguard Pact, whatever that was. "Don't let them out of your sight," Jupiter told Fen for the upteenth time as he returned from the ticket desk. "No detours, no distractions, straight home to the hotel. No side trips or delays of any sort. Understand?" Fen rolled her eyes. "Oh, but I was going to stop by and buy ice cream and puppies." "Feenstra," he said warningly. "All right, keep your beard on." He turned to Morgan, Hawthorne, and Jack. "Right, you three. It'll be crowded down there. Stay close to Fen and don't wander off. Fen, best take Rush Line to Lilith Gate and then change to Centenary Line. That'll get you to Island in the river. You can catch the Brawley Rail straight from there, back to Kaddish Alley. You lot got your Brawleys?" The children nodded. "But Viking Line goes directly to Island in the river," said Fen. Jupiter shook his head. "Chap at the ticket desk says there's a delay due to a Viking horde attack in one of the tunnels. There'll be hours sorting out that mess." "Rush Line it is," she agreed. "Come on, you three." They descended into the busy station and pushed through the turnstiles. Fen, who was too large to go the normal way, jumped over top. An indignant ticket collector made to tell her off, but then she hissed at him, and he immediately went back on with his business. As they traversed tunnels and stairwells, Hawthorne kept looking over his shoulder at Morgan, desperate to ask her about the trial, but it was too busy. Morgan caught his eye and shrugged, mouthing the words, "I don't know." When they finally got to the platform, Fen pushed through the crowd to the yellow line at the front, parting the commuters like wheat stalks in a field. Hawthorne, Morgan, and Jack each grasped a tuft of her fur and tried to keep up, apologizing to people as they elbowed past. "Slow down, Fen," said Jack. "You're going to trample people." "If people are in my way, they deserve to be trampled," grumbled the Magnificat. "This is just what I need after this ridiculous day. I've had to babysit you three in a packed Wonderground. The Deucalion's been a mess all day, people coming and going and making noise. We've had workers in to sort out the wiring in the South Wing, and Kettigree's had those ridiculous ghost hunters back yet again." "Ghost hunters?" said Hawthorne, looking excited. "I thought they got rid of the ghosts," said Morgan. "Back in the summer, remember? They did that exorcism." "And yet, despite their really top-notch sage-waving," Fen said dryly, "our gray man is still hanging out in the South Wing, spooking people, walking through walls and disappearing around corners. The staff have even given him some funny name. Oh, what was it?" "I haven't seen any gray man," said Morgan. "So you shouldn't. You've had no reason to be in the South Wing while those reservations are going on." Morgan exchanged guilty looks with Hawthorne and Jack, but said nothing. They still hadn't told anyone about Morgan's accidental visit to the South Wing on the night the Shadow escaped. "It's the builders who keep complaining about him. They say they hear him from the next room, and when they rush in to see who's there, he just disappears into the gossamer." "Hear him doing what?" said Jack. "Singing or humming. That's what they call him, the humming man. Ridiculous." Morgan felt a sudden lurch, as though she'd missed a stare. The gray man, the humming man, walking through the walls in the South Wing, disappearing in the gossamer like a ghost. She knew instantly how Ezra Squall had been getting into Nevermore. It was like a light had been switched on in her head, and she knew and could see at last very clearly. "The gossamer line!" she cried. "The what?" said Hawthorne. "The gossamer line. That's how he's doing it. That's how he's getting into Nevermore," she said. "How's who is getting into Nevermore?" said Jack. "What are you talking about?" "Mr. Jones, Ezra Squall. He's the gray man, the man who hums. That's why people think they're seeing a ghost. He's traveling here on the gossamer line. He can walk through walls." But her voice was lost beneath a high-pitched whistle and whoosh of steam as the train pulled up the platform, scowling. Fen nudged Morgan and the boys into the first carriage. They had no trouble getting seats since the other passengers had huddled at the opposite end, happy to give a giant yellow-eyed Magnificat a wide berth. When they were settled, Fen leaned in close, shoving her great gray head from between them. "Watch what you talk about in crowded Wonderground station," she growled. "The gossamer's line, supposed to be top secret." "But Ezra Squall is using it," hissed Morgan, glancing over her shoulder to make sure no one was listening. "We have to tell Jupiter. There's no ghost, Fen. It's Ezra Squall." Squall. He's the gray man. Ezra Squall. Fen dropped her voice even lower. The Wondersmith, Ezra Squall? Nonsense. He was banished from Nevermore ages and ages ago. It's not nonsense. I saw him myself. He was in the lobby the day the chandelier crashed, and I spoke to him in the South Wing one night last summer. What were you doing in the South Wing? Fen demanded. And he came to watch the Black Parade on Hallowmas. It's true, said Hawthorne, nodding fervently. He was there. I saw him too. Dame Chandra showed me a picture of Squall from 100 years ago, and it's him, Fen. It looks exactly the same. He hasn't aged a day. That's how he's gotten around the ban, by leaving his body in the Republic, the Border Guards, the Ground Force, the Royal Sorcery Council. None of them could detect him floating around Nevermore, because technically he was never here. That's true, said Jack with a deep frown. If it really is the Wondersmith, and he's really getting into Nevermore on the Gossamer line, then why? His wary eyes flicked over to Morgan. What does he want? Maybe he's trying to find a weak spot, said Hawthorne. Somewhere he can break back into Nevermore. He gave Morgan a significant look, silently encouraging her to tell them about Squall's apprenticeship bid. He was right, she thought. She had to tell someone, and who knew when Jupiter would return. Fen, I think I know what, Morgan began quietly, but the Magnificat cut her off. This is rubbish. Even if he was riding the Gossamer line, he couldn't hurt anyone. He can't even touch anyone. It's impossible to make physical contact with anything through the Gossamer. Fen, listen. I know what Squall. He's a Wondersmith, Fen, Jack interrupted. There must be plenty of stuff he can do that other people can't. I'm telling you, it's impossible. Fen, listen to me, Morgan shouted. Suddenly, the lights in the carriage flickered off, and the train slowed to a halt. The passengers still all groaned. Why have we stopped, Daddy? Said a little boy halfway down the carriage. Why aren't the doors opening? Just another stupid delay, son, said the man, citing the defeated sigh of a seasoned commuter. Mouse on the tracks or something. Lights flickered again, fading to black and then stuttering half-heartedly back to life. There was a mechanical sound, squeal, and a voice spoke over the public address system. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Seems we have some sort of signal interference up ahead. Shouldn't be long before we're moving. Thank you for your patience. The lights flickered again. The seats vibrated and the handrails shook. Morgan looked around. Nobody seemed to notice. She heard a rumbling from the tunnel and moved back to the carriage to press her ear against the wall. What are you doing? Demanded Fen. Can't you hear it? Hear what? Asked Hawthorne. It sounds like hooves. It sounded like the rumbling of hooves bearing down on the Wonderground tracks, echoing in the tunnel. Then the screeching bray of a horse, the baying of hounds, the sound of a shot being fired. Morgan stumbled backward, falling over the seats. Run, she yelled. Everyone get back, they're coming. But there was nowhere to go. The carriage was packed and the train was stopped in the middle of the tunnel. Morgan turned to see the crash of the crowd surrounding her. Dozens of puzzled faces, including Hawthorne, Feenstra, and Jack, all looking worried. Morgan, what are you talking about? Said Hawthorne. But his voice sounded so distant, so quiet compared to the thundering rush of the hunt and smoke and shadow. I can't hear any. And suddenly, nothing but smoke. Nothing but a thick, swirling mass of shadow and smoke surrounding her, filling her lungs. Her feet were swept from under her, and she was lifted into the air, carried along by the hunt, the triumphant sound of horns deafening. She held tight to her black umbrella, clutching it as if it might somehow anchor her to the ground. Morgan had never been in the ocean, had never even seen it in real life, but this, she imagined, this was what it would be like to drown, to be swept away by a violent wave and tumbled over and over and over again until there was nothing, only blackness and shadow and black.